Things Are Getting Strange, an X-Files Rewatch podcast. I'm Nick.
And I'm Kim.
And we completely failed to do a Merry Christmas episode last time, so now we're in the new year.
Yeah, though we're recording this just before Christmas Eve, which feels a bit weird to say that, but hope you all had a good Christmas then.
Yes. And that the world didn't end in the interim. This is going to feel so bad if, meteor strikes or something on Christmas Day.
Yeah, and all this suddenly seems poor taste.
I mean, I'd like to think if the meteor does strike them, all the computer will be wiped out.
True.
So no one need know that I've said this really stupid thing. Anyway, I kind of have X-Files news, but I also kind of don't.
Well, that's ambiguous.
Yes. Basically, I saw an article pop up on the Mary Sue talking about the X-Files reboot.
Okay.
Is there some news? And no, it turns out they were referencing the sources from March that we've already seen. I don't know why it showed up in December. It was just, this article says nothing, we don't know. Why is this here?
Random.
This was news in March when this came out.
On a slightly tangential note, I saw William B. Davis in a movie the other day.
Yes. Do I tell them about the movie?
Yes, the movie is called It's a Wonderful Knife. It was a new release this year. It's kind of a horror comedy take on It's a Wonderful Life, where a girl saves a town from a serial killer but doesn't feel greatly appreciated the next year and winds up wishing that she was never born, therefore creating a reality where the serial killer is still running rampant.
Indeed. And it's directed by Tyler McIntyre and written by Michael Kennedy. It came out on the 8th of October 2023. But it's not just William B. Davis in there, is there?
No, and it should be noted if you're watching this for him that William B. Davis is only, right at the start of the film, he's only appears in one scene, I think.
But we're going to lay claim to it because there's two other cast members of note, which was kind of a surprise.
Yeah, it's Joel McHale was one of the main characters in it. So he appears in season 10 of The X-Files, I think.
Definitely season 10. I wanted to say 11 as well, but I don't want to swear to that.
He's better known for being Winger in Community, anyway.
Yes, and also doing that hilarious advert you found the other day.
Oh, for Doomlings.
For Doomlings, yes.
That's worth watching.
But we've got another X-Files cast member in there. Not a guest star, but...
Yeah, she's a little bit more obscure, but it's that, the person who plays Ginger in Ginger Snaps again.
Yes, that'd be Kathleen Isabel.
Ah, okay. Yeah, she was in Scisogeny, I think.
Yes, she was, and we know her best as Ginger in Ginger Snaps. So it's all the tangled web of the X-Files has woven itself around everything, apparently.
But yeah, probably would have been more appropriate for me to talk about this movie pre-Christmas, with it being a Christmas film. But it's worth a watch. It's not the kind of best take on the genre, but it was good fun.
It was, yes. I was going to say, I think we said afterwards, that's like Totally Killer is a better horror comedy if you want that kind of thing.
Or Final Girls.
And It's Wonderful Knife. There's a YouTuber called Aaron Signal who did a whole thing about modern horror comedy takes on classic films.
Oh, yeah.
Happy Death Day is Groundhog Day.
Freaky being like Freaky Friday.
Yep. Totally Killer is...
Back to the Future?
Back to the Future. I blanked for a second there. And obviously, It's a Wonderful Knife is It's a Wonderful Life. With some surprises. Because they actually are a bit more clever than doing it sounds like it's going to be.
Yeah, it was. It was a bit of a slow burn, though, as well. You have to bear with it for a bit.
Yeah, and I do think we need to highlight that. As much as it's marketed as a comedy, and Justin Long is doing his comedy best, it's not actually very funny at all.
No, it's not on the level, as we say, of Final Girls and Totally Killer.
It is heartwarming, though, in the end, so that's something.
Yeah. Makes it a good Christmas film.
It is. I mean, it doesn't have like the joke sting that the end of Totally Killer had, which I thought was a great way to sort of end things.
Yeah.
But I suppose it's the new year, and we've just got to finish off season 5.
Yeah, you could have gone New Year, New Season.
I could have done. Well, new year film, but we're going to have to... Oh, never mind. We'll try and line things up in future. But I suppose then we have to talk about the end of season 5.
Yep, last 2 episodes.
So first up, we have Folie, Deux, directed by Kim Manners, written by Vince Gilligan, and first broadcast on the 10th of May 1998. Guest stars. Brian Markinson played Gary Lambert. So the first thing I've noted down he's previously been in will make no sense to you at all.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's a thing called China Beach.
Okay.
I have to explain this, because I know this like third hand, which is really weird. So There's another YouTuber called Jenny Nicholson who does videos about all manner of things, and she did a 2.5-hour one about the Vampire Diaries, which I watched. And she has a section in that about China Beach purely because when she was watching it on video on demand, what would pop up in the ad breaks more often than anything else was an advert for the China Beach Season 1 box set.
Okay.
Vampire Diaries, is about sexy vampires and their sexy romances and all the love triangle stuff.
Yeah.
China Beach is about the Vietnam War and female medics. Can you think of a less appropriate combination of things?
I'm not sure where your demographic would fall that would cover both of these.
Exactly, so it's what was going on. But, so basically, whenever I see China Beach, I sort of my ears prick up because I only know about it. Because she makes a big thing about it being in the ad breaks for the Vampire Diaries. Which is, silly. He was also in Star Trek Next Generation, Star Trek Voyager, and Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
Oh, okay.
As completely different characters again.
Alright.
And we've seen him before. In the X-Files. He was in Born Again.
Okay, yeah, I remember Born Again.
I think
Season 1.
I think he's the guy, the brother of the killer who he kills in bed and they find him watching TV.
Oh, that one.
That
okay.
one. I think it's him. We also have Cynthia Preston, who played Nancy Aronson, which has made me realise something else, but we'll get into that in a bit, who was in the 2013 version of Carrie.
Okay.
And I always forget this thing happened. Total Recall 2070. No. This isn't the remake. This is the TV series.
It was a TV series?
Yes, although this is what the 90s was a weird era for sci-fi series, and I never got to see these even though they were flagged up. I don't know if they've actually got out of here. Total Recall 2070 is not the series you think it is, because despite the name, it's basically Blade Runner, the TV series, because it's all about androids.
Okay.
It's just inexplicably called Total Recall. It's kind of like they could get the rights to Total Recall, not Blade Runner, but it's basically mashing Total Recall and Blade Runner together because the Tyrell Corporation shows up.
How surreal.
Indeed.
I'm still not interested.
Fair enough.
There can only be one.
There can only be one, and I don't think it did very well. And then there's Roger Cross, who played Agent Rice, who's been in loads of things. So, like, Look Who's Talking Now, the poor man.
Oh, no.
Free Willy 3.
Oh, no.
Final Destination 2.
Okay, I like that.
X-Men 2. Sliders.
Yay!
Millennium. Star Trek Enterprise. Orphan Black. Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency, the American version. Actually, I should just stop saying that because the other one's just called Dirk Gently.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, the English one. Did voices for Fallout New Vegas, Saints Row the Third, and Bioshock Infinite.
Okay.
He got a starring role in Fallout New Vegas, and we've seen him before.
Yeah.
He's been in EBE, Fresh Bones, Pusher, and will turn up in Familiar, which is season 11.
Yeah, I remember Familiar. As different characters, I presume.
Oh, yeah. And last but not least is Dmitry Chepovsky, who played the supervisor.
Okay.
Who we've previously seen in Dodd Calm, but oh, so much greater is his role in Dead Silence.
Oh, no.
If you ever want to watch James Wan directed stupid film about stupid puppetry and stupid Last Will and Testaments, and oh my god, that film is just a lot.
James Wan's always worth a watch.
It's a lot though, isn't it?
Would you like to give us a synopsis for this one?
I mean, sure. So, from Wikipedia, in Illinois, Gary Lambert, a telemarketer at a company called Vinylrite, believes that his seemingly normal boss, Greg Pincus, is an insect-like monster that only he can see in its true form. Skinner orders Mulder and Scully to go to Chicago to do a threat assessment of a taped manifesto that mentions Vinylrite, which has seen a previous violent incident at its Kansas office. Mulder suspects the case is a deliberate waste of time and tells Scully not to accompany him. He meets with Pincus and learns that the tape was sent to a local radio station with a demand that it be played 24 hours a day. On the tape, a man, who is later revealed to be Lambert, claims that a monster hides in the light and stalks employees at Vinylrite. Mulder contacts Scully and asks her to find the phrase within the X-Files. After one of Lambert's co-workers, Nancy Aronson, is turned into a living corpse by Pincus, while appearing normal to everyone else, Lambert flees to his apartment and arms himself. Scully calls Mulder back to tell him she found the phrase hiding in the light in a 1992 case from Lakeland, Florida, that involved a similar accusation of hidden monsters. Mulder admits that Scully should come to help him, and returns to Vinylrite and unwittingly walks into the middle of a hostage situation. He is held captive by Lambert, along with Pincus and the other employees. When Scully arrives at the scene, Lambert divides his hostages into real people and monsters, claiming that Pincus has turned several employees into zombies. Lambert shoots Mark Bacchus, one of the purported zombies, when he tries to disarm him while briefly distracted by Mulder. When Lambert demands a camera to broadcast his warning, Scully arranges for a SWAT officer disguised as a cameraman to be sent into the building. Lambert accuses Pincus of being a monster. As lights are cut, Lambert forces Mulder to look behind him and see that Pincus, for an instant, is a large insect. The FBI smashes into the room with an armoured vehicle and kills Lambert before he can open fire. Mulder questions Pincus and learns that he was present during the vinyl riot incidents in Kansas City and Florida. Mulder maps out all reports of the monsters hiding in the light against places Pincus had lived previously. He tries to convince Scully that Lambert might have been right, but she suspects he is succumbing to Folie, or the shared psychosis. Mulder asks Scully to do an autopsy of Bacchus to see if there is any evidence of Lambert's claims, but Scully refuses. In an effort to prove Lambert right, Mulder goes to his home with Agent Rice. There, Mulder finds a map of Pincus's movements and incidents of reported monsters, much like the map Mulder made. Out the window, Mulder sees the zombified Nancy watching him. He runs outside to confront her, but she drives away in a car with Pincus. Meanwhile, Skinner asks Scully why Mulder returned to Chicago without her. She covers for him, but then finds herself committed to performing Bacchus's autopsy. She hands over the operation to her assistant, who observes the body has been dead for between 48 to 72 hours, not the 24 hours since the shooting. Back in Oakbrook, Mulder follows Pincus to the house of the vinyl right employee, Gretchen Starnes. He looks through the window and sees the monster leaning over the woman as she watches TV. Breaking into the house, Mulder sees that Starnes has been transformed into a zombie. Behind him, the monster walks out across the ceiling. Mulder catches a glimpse of it, crawling up the outside of the house. Later, Pincus and Starnes complain to Skinner about Mulder's behaviour. Mulder sees Pincus begin to transform into the creature and draws his weapon. He is restrained by disbelieving Skinner and sedated in hospital. Mulder tells Scully that he saw the monster doing something to the back of his victim's neck, begging her to look for similar evidence on Bacchus's body. Scully finds 3 puncture wounds at the back of his spine, marking the corners of an equilateral triangle. Meanwhile, Mulder is still restrained to his bed at the hospital and sees the silhouette of the monster in the window. He screams for the nurse, but it soon discovers she has already been bitten and become a zombie. She opens the window to let the monster in. Scully tries to visit Mulder, but the nurse refuses access. Scully then sees the nurse as a zombie as well and realises that Mulder is in danger. Running into Mulder's room, she sees and shoots at the monster. It leaps through the partially open window and disappears. Scully testifies to Skinner that she believes Mulder is mentally sound and fit for duty, noting the intruder in Mulder's room, and a chemical compound found in Bacchus's body, and that Pincus and several other vinyl right employees mysteriously disappeared. Afterwards, she tells Mulder that she told Skinner it was a folie deux and describes it as a madness shared by 2. Meanwhile, a different worker at a different telemarketing agency in Missouri notices the same ominous signs of the creature.
Thank you.
I was really confused reading reviews of this episode, because some people said it was funny.
I don't think it's really supposed to be a comedy episode.
Neither do I. The best I can come up with is it's meant to be a kind of blackly comedic thing of all the places this strange bug thing is stalking people, it's at a telemarketing firm.
Yeah, a call centre is a bit of an unusual place to do this.
It's the crushing mundanity of it, and you get things like Office Space kind of supervisors telling you to do these really stupid, pointless things that apparently affect things.
Oh, they smile because they can hear you smiling.
Smile and dial, Gary, smile and dial.
That's the line. It's very much like Phantasmagoria 2 in that sense of having the mundane setting where the horrible things are occurring.
I heard that, Curtis. Indeed. I did realise there is a joke that basically I think is really easy to miss.
Oh, yeah.
So his co-worker is the first person who's called into the boss's office, and then she's turned into a zombie.
Yeah.
Her surname is Aronson. It's the gag from like Simpsons, like where they say, "Oh, we won't tell Homer." And they sort of get the phone book out. And they contact Mr. Aronson.
Yeah.
And then Mr. Zachary or something. It's like they're the biggest gossips in Springfield. But
Yeah.
Aronson being double A is the start of the alphabet, almost always. So that doesn't really come across in the episode very well at all. But I do like the fact that he's just basically working through his office alphabetically.
Yeah.
And Greg is closer to the middle than you'd like.
I liked the casting of Mr. Pincus in this episode. I thought he was perfect.
He was. I mean, he did Bewildered Wild Out very well, but then he slipped into knowing way more than he should do really well and kind of effortlessly.
The smug looks over Skinner's shoulder as well.
Yeah. And the fact that he basically goaded Mulder into getting himself in trouble there.
While seeming to be kind of benevolent and understanding.
Yeah. I think the one problem you have with it is it doesn't quite mesh how it's suggesting it works. Because the insinuation is meant to be that Gary, Mulder, and Scully see Pincus in his true form and zombies because they know what to look for.
Yeah.
But there's actually an implication in how a lot of Gary's point of views, and even Mulder's, that it's certain circumstances can do it. Because I don't think you get the impression that Gary is always seeing him as a monster, because he can suddenly hear Pincus talking normally.
He's hiding in the light.
Yeah, which the bug doesn't seem to be doing, does it? Because I don't think you see the bug talk in a normal voice, which is what you'd think if this was just a true form and a camouflage.
Yeah.
It seems to be... It's less... it does seem to be less that you can actually sort of see through the disguise, or more there are points when it'll slip.
Yeah.
And if you're quick, you can catch it in them.
Yeah.
And I like the ominous sounds, like the chittering is, again, that great on edge kind of thing.
Mm.
And the thrum of wings, or the cessation of rings, isn't there?
Yeah. We've got some nice practical effects with the bug as well. I really like the bit where it scampers across the ceiling behind Mulder's head.
Yeah. I like the fact it kind of it's slightly out of focus and kind of blurry. It's like, actually gives you the impression that if you're watching the scene, you're not quite seeing it properly still.
I have a story about that. It's because the monster suit looked atrocious. And apparently Kim Manners saw it and thought that it would ruin his entire career. It was that rubbish and that not frightening. So in post, they applied this kind of found footagey motion blur effect to it.
Oh, okay.
Just to hide how bad the suit looked. But it gives you this really, really neat kind of visual kind of quirk about whenever the monster appears.
Yeah, you can see just about enough to get the impression of an insectoid head.
Yeah.
But not see it clearly.
But at least actually made it intimidating as well, whereas I guess a clear shot of the suit evidently wouldn't have been. It's a woman as well wearing it. It's a female stunt woman. And a lot of the scenes were also done practically. Other than that blurring, it's all practical effects, including building like an upside-down house on a soundstage to get the crawling up walls and across the ceiling looking right.
Oh, that's very cool. I mean, it's one of these great things about Hollywood special effects as well, though, that the suit doesn't look great, is Alien's the infamous example.
Mm.
That as much as you got stories of Sigourney Weaver being taken in to see the suit for the first time and coming out and saying, I need a lot of drinks, Ridley Scott still insisted that you never get a good clear shot of it. You always had to see parts of it.
It's the best way to shoot a monster movie, particularly a practical effect monster movie, is to never show the monster.
Yes, it was also noted in Species that at the end of Species, there's some CGI of Syl, and she looks pretty dreadful.
Yeah.
But everything up to that, basically, it's always half light and sort of like isolated bits of her, isn't it?
I always like the Relic for my example of this, because a lot of the shots of the monster in Relic are extreme close-ups, so you get an impression of a kind of paw or a jaw or something like that. But there are only a couple of shots in the whole film of it in full body, which are the CGI ones, and the practical effects are way better. Yes,
and it's one of these things where a lot of people can point this to the problem of CGI these days. Is, I mean, we can do it in the Alien series itself. You contrast how the alien looks in Alien versus how they look in Covenant. Like, they move so much more smoothly and gracefully in Covenant. They are not as scary as Alien.
Yeah.
By any measure.
Absolutely.
And Alien looks absolutely mysterious, and you never get as well. Well, unfortunately, we know what the alien looks like these days because there's lots of colour photos of the thing.
But in the original film, you barely see it.
And in the cinema, you would not be sure what it looked like. You'd get an impression of something. So, yeah, it feeds back into that whole CGI doesn't solve some problems, causes other ones. You know, I quite have the same experience you used to. Back to Folie. I think one interesting thing is this is kind of how you'd expect Mulder to behave if you'd never seen the X-Files. This is an outsider's view of Mulder. Like, sort of fastening onto this really strange conspiracy, and then drawing maps and sort of focusing on a person and getting to this weird conspiracy theory that he's got lots of circumstantial evidence, but it doesn't make any sense as a theory. Because, again, we go back to, why is this insect converting people in a telemarketing firm?
The basic nature of the episode is their inspiration was to portray what would be a quintessential plot showing madness. So in the case of this, is the most insane thing you can think of is there is a monster in the room and only I can see it.
Yeah.
So that's the entire idea behind this episode, is portraying this thing that if you mentioned it, you would obviously be viewed as being insane.
Which it very much comes across as, and I think that it works very well as an idea.
It should be noted as well that folie is actually a medical condition. It's absolutely fascinating, and I will cite because it's a good way of getting a grip of how it works. There's an episode of Mr. Ballen's Strange, Dark and Mysterious podcast, which presents 3 different cases of true folie deux. And, you can see through that. It's usually 2 people who are in isolation, and one of them is more dominant and charismatic, the other is a bit more submissive. And the dominant one is the one who primarily has the psychosis, but because the other person's isolated and just with them and, submissive to them, that they also start to show kind of symptoms of the same psychosis. Okay. So, it literally is the madness shared.
Interesting.
Which is kind of what we see in this episode. We have Lambert is our one with the psychosis, and it kind of spreads to Mulder and later Scully.
Yeah. I mean, I think you got to admit that the X-Files breaks on a little bit because Mulder hasn't really got an impression to push this onto Scully, given that the moment she buys into the folie deux, she is looking at what should be a perfectly normal nurse behind a desk. And as the synopsis noted, but I didn't read it out, was at the end when Scully says it's a folie deux, she doesn't specify who the 2 people were.
Yeah.
I mean, we're going to have to assume it was her and Mulder ultimately.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. I do like the whole idea of you can see something that no one else can. You mean, I know, you probably don't want to do it, and it's not what they're thinking of at all. I can't help but tie it back to Colony. Because the colonists, when they see the alien bounty hunter, freak out the second they see him.
Yeah.
So, are we sure that the bounty hunter isn't a giant insect?
He's hiding in the light.
He's hiding in light, and all the rest of them are just this is part of the colonization program. Absolutely not. This doesn't make any sense at all.
I love taglines like that in horror things as well, because he's hiding in the light is such a kind of cryptic yet creepy statement.
Yes.
There's one of the X-Files comics where it's all, initially it builds down through the comics and gets more ridiculous, but in its initial instance, it's all framed around a mall shooting, in which the shooter, before they die, just keeps saying there's a hole in the sky. And it's just statements like that that just draw your interest and think, all right, yeah, I want to know exactly what this means.
There was a hole here once, now it's gone.
Yeah. That was Silent Hill 2.
That it was.
But yeah.
Not actually foreshadowing Silent Hill 4 before anyone says that, because no.
But it is just a neat turn of phrase that sticks in your head and kind of makes you curious, brings you into it, as such.
Absolutely.
I did find out something that might be slightly interesting for you, is there are some comparisons apparently that are drawn between Folie deux and 2 Philip K. Dick stories.
I can absolutely see that.
One of them I've read, one of them I'm unfamiliar with, but I know that you know Philip K. Dick better than I am. The one I don't know is the father thing.
I'm pretty sure I've read it. I can't for life remember how that one works offhand.
It's, as far as I can tell, it's an Invasion of the Body Snatchers style story in which a child notices that his father has been switched with another being that looks like his father.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that rings true for Philip K. Dick, certainly. What was the one you are familiar with?
The one that I am familiar with is The Hanging Stranger.
I was about to say that, I wondered if it was that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, that one I do remember.
Yeah, so The Hanging Stranger is one where a guy notices a body hanging from a lamppost that no one else seems to be reacting to. But ultimately, it all boils down to there's been an invasion of alien insects, sorry to spoil the story for you, and they have hung that man there just so they can identify anyone who's not fallen under their control. So by reacting to it, he's drawn the attention of the aliens.
Yep. I do remember that one.
Mm.
I can definitely see the similarity there.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it was an intentional thing in the episode, it's just when I was reading reviews of this online, there were a couple of parallels that were drawn. It certainly is a bit of an Invasion of the Body Snatchers style story with the army of zombies. Yes,
I mean, I think that's possibly one of the other frightening aspects of it, is we literally have no idea what he can possibly be doing with this.
Mm.
One of the other odd things I do think about it, and it could be a fault with how the episodes are constructed, is there's no implication that he was making zombies before Gary made his threat. Because Nancy's definitely implied to be one of the first ones. And then he goes through a few other letters of the alphabet. Because there's only a small cluster of them.
As of the hostage situation, there's maybe a dozen of them.
Yeah. And then, because he separated them into 2 groups. So he hasn't, whatever he's doing is quick, but he's not doing it, he wasn't doing it before the threat came in. And that feels to me like possibly a mistake, and it should have been he should have other ones in place first.
Yeah.
And then be accelerating it.
Especially as it's inferred that he's done this over several sites previously as well.
Yeah. I do like the fact that the Mulder draws the map out and the actual route does make a lot of sense because it crosses over itself a few times. We know very well we're never going to get the flip side of this, of what on earth was the creature trying to do. Which I do kind of like ultimately, because I don't think you can answer this in a way we're going to like.
You don't know if it's an alien or another genetic mutant or anything like that.
No. Or it's related to Darkness Falls. Let's just go all out on some weird insectoid stuff.
Yeah, I'm not even going to try and analyse what's wrong with the insect in this episode, to be honest. I'm going to buy it's an alien species and therefore it can do whatever it wants.
Well, yeah, I think you've got enough biology to latch onto. There's certainly no one saying it's species X, are they?
No. We know the fact that creatures with exoskeletons in our atmospheric conditions cannot get that large.
Yeah.
And that's about all I can say for it. But, it's an alien. It can do what it wants. I'm assuming, like the hanging stranger, it is an alien. But there we go.
Yeah. I do like as well, though, that the paranoia about this creature that knows, because does like the hanging
The hanging stranger.
The hanging stranger does just force the people who see through it up into extremes very fast, because they're acutely aware of the threat this thing represents.
I think the best part of the episode is the hostage situation.
Yes.
It's incredibly tense, and honestly, I think they've learned from Dwayne Barry. It's framed a lot better than Dwayne Barry, and Mulder reacts a lot better than he does in Dwayne Barry when he's in this situation and talking directly to a man with an AK-47.
Yes. Speaking of Philip K. Dick stuff as well, though, it just made me think of, if this was actually a Philip K. Dick story, the whole thing would be the hostage situation.
Yeah.
And you would have the doubt that he was actually telling the truth until the very last minute or something, when you'd have the glimpse of the insect.
Yeah.
But then the insect would vanish off and you'd never see it again. A very Lovecraftian style of thing as well, is you'd sort of have the reveal at the very last second and the protagonist is left doubting whether they saw what they thought they saw.
I think in this episode you can go with the doubt until Mulder sees it too.
Yeah.
You're never sure if what you were seeing before that is just from Lambert's perspective. And if, Mr. Pincus seems perfectly nice, perfectly ordinary, maybe Lambert is just crazy.
Yeah. I think also the fact you get the chittering noise as well.
Again, it's an audio thing, though. This could be his psychosis.
It could be. I do wonder if we're missing some of the Blackley comic stuff as well. If it's meant to be just pure, really black comic, like mostly black with a little bit of comic. Just because the end of the episode is insinuating that despite fleeing with all his zombies, he's gone back to work at another telemarketer firm.
Yeah, that bit is kind of funny. I don't consider it a comedy episode. I think it's a straight Monster of the Week, to be honest. But I really like it.
Oh yeah,
I think it's an
good.
excellent episode.
Yeah, it's very odd to have this late on in the season to sort of put this right as your penultimate episode, but it is a good episode.
Yeah, it's a really strong Monster of the Week one. I think, as I keep saying, take the actual comedy Monster of the Weeks out of the running because they throw off my ratings somewhat. It's top tier. It's one of the best Monster of the Week episodes we've had.
Oh, yeah. I do also feel that, hey, we're acting to Mulder properly for the first time, because remember when Mulder pulled a gun on that doctor back in Emily and nothing happened, and this time he pulls a gun on
And he gets committed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. How is it taking this long? This should have happened 4 seasons ago.
Admittedly, he's committed for all of an hour before they kind of prove the fact that Mulder is under attack and he's not just completely lost it this time.
Yeah. Scully behaves slightly oddly in this one. Though I can understand why she's hedging her bets, because saying what she thought she saw is going to make her sound as insane as Mulder was. But we've established, though, that if Scully can actually see and experience something and can't disprove it, she will have to accept it. So, she knows she saw something weird looming over Mulder in that hospital room. She shot it and she saw it dive out a window and vanish without a trace. And to smash the window like that has to be something pretty substantial.
And they're not on the ground floor either.
No, they were like 3 floors up or something, wasn't it? So, yeah, nothing could possibly go in your window. Yeah, I can climb up the side of the building. I'm in trouble. Do you have anything else for this episode?
I did see an interesting thing, and I believe this one was Cinefastique in their review. Should be noted that this overwhelmingly has positive reviews, this episode, quite rightly so. But Cinefastique kind of commented on the structure of it and how it's kind of interesting, because it opens as a Mulder-centric episode and becomes a Scully-centric episode.
That's a good point, actually.
Usually it's one or the other sticking through, but Folie is quite unique.
Yeah. Oh, actually, that's why I do like the fact that Scully does not have time for this when they get to the autopsy. It's of, look, I don't care, there's nothing to investigate, just take the pictures and we'll be done with it.
It's not until the guy comments on the corpse's lividity.
Yeah, it's too decomposed. It's a case of, wait, something odd is happening. And then the fact that she goes back to look at the body and discovers that, yeah, actually there is something wrong with the back of his neck.
I also like the fact that they're both immediately dismissive of this one. Even Mulder calls it a jerk-off assignment to begin with. He just thinks it's, kind of going to be absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
And Scully thinks the same thing when she gets in on there.
Although, it's one of these ones where you do kind of want to say to Mulder, it's like, yes, season 2, you thought Skinner was jerking you around, but even in season 2, Skinner was giving you cases that he thought were relevant to you. I don't know why you think he suddenly slipped into, aha, I'm going to be evil to Mulder this week. Because Mulder was convinced the host was basically just a screw you from Skinner.
Mm.
No, that was a genuine fluke man thing, Mulder.
But yeah, I actually don't have a lot to talk about this episode because it's so good. I have very little to pick at.
Well, I think that's the problem with it, is it's all very effective and it hangs together very well. And the good kind of it's got the good kind of horror story, short story open ending of, we've resolved a plot line. Unfortunately, the threat is still here. We haven't destroyed it. It's still out there. You're safe for now. You don't know how long for.
It's a good call on long-running series. It hasn't worked out greatly well in the X-Files because we've got the likes of Kitsunagari, but the idea of keeping the killer alive in case 2 seasons down the line you want a follow-up episode is always a smart move.
And it's the kind of thing where I can see they might not be able to get the guy who played Greg Finkus back in, but I don't see any reason why the insect can't impersonate other people. And you don't even have to get the same zombies back, you can have literally any of those zombies. Well, shall we just finish everything?
The end of everything.
The end of everything. The end of the X-Files. Just don't pay attention to those other 6 seasons, the 2 films, some comic books, video games. Yeah, this one called The End. Directed by R.W. Goodwin, written by Chris Carter, and first broadcast on the 17th of May, 1998. There's a whole lot of guest stars in this episode, but most of them we are well aware of who they are. We've got Cancerman, we've got the various syndicate members, we've got Krychek, we've got Spender. But we have a few new people. So we have Jeff Gilka, who played Gibson Praise. He was in Jingle All the Way 2.
Oh no.
Millennium.
Okay.
And he'll be in 4 other episodes of The X-Files.
Oh, alright.
Mimi Rogers is Diana Fowley. And it was the first one of these was a case of course she is. She's Mrs. Kensington in Austin Powers.
Is she?
The mother, the one in the 60s.
Okay. Fair enough.
She's in Lost in Space, the one with Matt LeBlanc.
Oh no.
Ginger Snaps, because she's Ginger's mother.
Ah, we're still going.
We're still going. Cruel Intentions 2, Ash vs. the Evil Dead. And she'll be in 6 more episodes of The X-Files.
Oh, only that.
Only that. And Martin Ferrero, who played The Shooter, as he's known.
Oh, I guess he doesn't get a name.
He doesn't, but you'll like one of these. So he's been in Planes, Trains and Automobiles, John Hughes' one. He was in Stop or My Mum Will Shoot. He's in Get Shorty.
Okay.
He's in Cheers. But where you will know him from is a little film, obscure indie film, called Jurassic Park, where he's Gennaro.
Is it Gennaro?
He's Gennaro. Guy who gets bitten in half by a T-Rex on the
lawyer,
toilet.
Yeah.
He's the shooter in this episode.
I can see it, yeah.
But you'd never think in a million years, would you?
No,
It's like,
I wouldn't have thought unless you said, but I can see him as Gennaro, yeah.
he looks familiar, but I can't think where from. So would you like to tell us how The X-Files ends for the second time?
Forever, it's called
Sorry,
The End.
forever,
Yeah.
sorry.
As Nick previously mentioned, this synopsis is largely ad-libbed from Wikipedia. We open in Vancouver, where there is an international chess tournament being held between Anatoly Klebanov, a Russian grandmaster, and Gibson Praise, a young America preteen child prodigy. We see up in the rafters there is the shooter, who is an MIB assassin, who is aiming at Gibson. It seems that Gibson senses the shooter's presence and manages to very discreetly sit down just as the gun is fired, ensuring that Klebanov is killed in his place. Meanwhile, in the Canadian wilderness, cigarette-smoking man is discovered by Alex Krycek. At the FBI headquarters, Skinner reveals to Mulder that Spender has begun to lead a case into the shooting. Spender has specifically requested that Mulder is not to be involved, which of course leads to Mulder immediately running to the meeting room to offer his explanation that the assassin was firing at Gibson and not the Russian Grandmaster. Also in this meeting is Diana Folie, someone that seems very familiar with Mulder. We learn later in the episode it's because she's his old flame. The cigarette-smoking man is brought before the first elder and the well-manicured man, who advise that he wants them to help in the situation concerning Gibson. Meanwhile, Diana Folie accompanies Mulder and Scully as they go to visit Gibson in Maryland. Mulder strongly believes that Gibson is a true psychic and can read minds, hence how he has become expert at chess. Mulder also visits the shooter in prison, despite the fact that Spender tells him not to do this. Mulder tells the shooter he can give him immunity in exchange for testimony. The shooter, however, refuses. Scully and Folie put Gibson through a series of tests which prove to them that he does appear to be a genuine psychic. We also cut to the guard at the prison, who is in contact with the shooter, handing him a flattened Muley cigarette box that has writing on it stating that he's a dead man. Scully also pays a visit to the lone gunman to ask them to analyse Gibson's data. She talks with them about who Diana is, and they reveal to her not only her previous relationship with Mulder, but also the fact that she was working closely with him when he first discovered the X-Files. The cigarette-smoking man pays a visit to Jeffrey Spender in the FBI's parking lot, but runs away when Mulder spots them talking. Even though Spender does not actually know who the cigarette-smoking man, this immediately makes Mulder desperately suspicious that he's in on the conspiracy. Mulder presents the case of Gibson before the FBI superiors, stating that he believes Gibson to be some kind of primal missing link. He believes that whatever is in Gibson's mind can unlock all the mysteries in the X-Files, and therefore he wants to make a deal with the shooter. Both Diana and Skinner think this may result in adverse attention from the Attorney General, and that if things go wrong, the X-Files could be closed down. Mulder, of course, dismisses this risk. Mulder meets with the shooter again, who confirms his beliefs that Gibson is the missing link, and that he has genes that are dormant in most humans. Although it seems like a deal will now be made, the guard at the prison shoots the shooter dead shortly after Mulder leaves. Back at the safe house, Folie tries to protect Gibson in the hotel room, but is shot through the window, and Gibson is captured by either the cigarette-smoking man or somebody working closely with him. Skinner reports to Mulder of the shooter's death, and says that a flattened Muley cigarette box was found in his cell. Mulder confronts Spender, accusing him of working with the cigarette-smoking man. Again, Spender has no idea who this person is at this stage. Meanwhile, the cigarette-smoking man turns praise over to the well-manicured man and the other syndicate members. In the final scenes of the episode, Scully is informed by Skinner that the Justice Department is having the X-Files shut down. Mulder realises that this is all like a giant game of chess and that he has lost. The cigarette-smoking man takes Samantha's X-Files from Mulder's office before setting it on fire. As he leaves, he meets Spender and admits to him that he is his father. By the time Mulder and Scully arrive at the FBI offices, the X-Files have been completely destroyed.
Thank you. There's a lot to pick at in this one.
The episode, I realise in summarising it, is all over the place. There's so many plot threads on the go in this one.
Yeah, and it's just... Wait, I'm going to start near the end just because I want to bring it up. And I think it's really weird.
The end of the end?
The end of the end. Yeah, sure. But, does Chris Carter remember Redux 2 anymore? Or are we meant to discount what happened in Redux 2 now?
What exactly are you getting at?
Why does Cancer Man take Samantha's file? Why on earth would he care?
Oh, you mean because Samantha's alive?
She's alive and well and has a family.
I think we all know that she's not alive and well.
Well, I know, but we don't have... But no one cares about that. But why is he taking the file away when he's going to burn down the offices? Because it's not like he's implied to not know what's in that file.
It's nostalgia. We've already inferred his links to the family and the fact that he possibly is Samantha's father.
Well, yeah, but it just feels an odd detail. I mean, I get why they're doing it. At the same time, why are you doing it? So to jump back to the start then, I think the big thing we have to say is it's an episode partially set in Vancouver.
I know, right?
I mean, they ditch Vancouver almost immediately, but we start in Vancouver.
That was apparently part of the nostalgia of this episode, is they were aware that they were going to be, at this stage, moving to LA. So they wanted to have a final big blowout in Vancouver and make it like a fan event. So all of those people in the stadium audience are actually fans of The X-Files who have been invited to watch. They opened the doors to people to come and visit, and they thought they'd have about 5,000 people. I think they said that stadium holds about 17,000, but they wound up having to turn people away because so many fans showed off.
Oh, wow.
And between, like, scenes and filming, they had, like, Gillian Anderson, David Duchovny answering questions for the audience. And I think they had a raffle or something like that to sell off a bunch of their old props and things. So it just turned into a big fan event, basically, that they filmed, that as part of it, they filmed this chess tournament for the final episode.
That's very cool.
Mm.
I do wonder, did they start destroying sets before they filmed this episode? I only say this because why the Syndicate are meeting in a group?
In a car, yeah.
In a car in the middle of this sort of dirt lot. Because if you lot don't like being seen together at the best of times, and now you're all standing here outside.
True.
Where's your New York offices?
There are a lot of goofs in this episode too. I don't know if it's due to care. One of the big ones was the fact that even though we've filmed the opening in Canada, where the murder takes place, in fact, in Canada, the FBI don't actually have jurisdiction in Canada, so there should be no case to begin with.
Yeah, it's a bit of a problem, that one.
Another one I saw banded around online was all the things that Krycek can do despite missing an arm.
Yeah, it's one of the things I didn't want to bring up last time, but from memory, it was a case of, have they forgotten that Krycek's missing an arm for a weird stretch in the middle here?
It's not ableism, and do correct me if this is wrong, because I'm going with what I read on the internet, is there are certain pastimes that are difficult, if not impossible, to do if you don't have two working hands, one of which is parachuting. So, to parachute, you've got, like, two cords that you need to steer the parachute.
Yeah.
So Krycek would not be able to pull the cord, and from what I read, that means you'd only be able to, like, turn right or something like that. But, it's little things like, as you say, it's like maybe we've forgotten the fact that Krycek is missing an arm.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure it comes back in later on, and he's definitely only got one arm. But from memory, there was a phase where I thought I'd forgotten, and he seemed to be just having no difficulties in his life.
Yeah. I think you play more, it's more like a mild inconvenience, his missing arm, than an actual disability.
Yeah, it's very odd. And we are jumping all over the place, but Krycek just working for the Syndicate now feels really odd after the Red and the Black, given he was at odds with everyone in that episode. But now he's just doing what Manicured Man wants him to do.
Basically being his driver.
Yeah. Do you often employ people with only one arm, Manicured Man?
Go on the basis of, well, if you're the Syndicate, and we've always, like you just said, they try not to be seen together, have a low profile. Having very attractive man with a obvious prosthetic arm might draw a bit of attention to you.
Also, rogue FBI agent. He's probably on a list somewhere.
Yeah. It's the kind of... It's not conspicuous. It's not like Quiet Willie, who you couldn't pick out of a lineup, really.
And I think it's done more for fan service. And again, I think we alluded to it, or mentioned in a previous episode, is that this was meant to be the last TV episode of The X-Files, and that did not pan out. Yeah,
you mentioned that before, as their original plan was to have 5 seasons and then move on to a series of movies.
And no, we get one film and go straight back to TV.
Apparently that was always the intention, to do it your way, but it was Fox that mandated more series just because The X-Files was a cash cow by this point.
It makes sense, and the films would take a lot longer and be a lot more expensive to produce. Whereas you can keep churning the episodes a lot easier. It doesn't explain some of the weirdness, like with the whole... I suppose that makes more sense for the whole why they're shutting down the Vancouver production and moving to LA. Is they weren't expecting to have to put any of that back in again. And I think we're going to get into a lot of this when we get to season 6, because that explains, like, why half of season 6 is how it is, and why we wait to a very specific point before we kind of revert to normal. So, yeah, that does make sense. We should also talk, though, if we stick to the start of it, that no one grapples with the fact that Gibson Praise is kind of a jerk. And not in a children's kind of... just being a child kind of jerk. In fact, he let that Russian guy get shot.
To be fair, I think anyone would have done in his situation if the alternative is you get shot in the head.
Oh, true, but when he first senses him, he could have run for the wings at that point.
Mm.
And he didn't. He kept on playing chess and then ducked out the way at the last second so the other guy got shot.
Well, that's a good point.
That is cold-blooded. He had other options and he didn't take them. I mean, that does lead into one of your other goofs about chess games, which I think is a very good point.
I'm not sure if it is a goof, to be honest, but I read online people saying the fact that grandmasters don't often get to mate in a game. It's purely because a grandmaster sees so many moves ahead as he knows mate is coming, so therefore he forfeits the match.
Yeah, and apparently I did read somewhere, and I can't remember where, that that is true of grandmasters, but one of their weird weaknesses grandmasters have is they're used to other grandmasters.
I have an anecdote from my life about that one, in fact. Is I grew up with a friend who was something like a young national champion of chess. And she once played against one of my friends who had only just learned how to play the game and lost to them.
Yes, because they're used to the strategies, and if you don't do them...
She was just saying through the fact, no, that's not what you do there. And my friend beat her.
Yeah.
And this was a friend who had learned how to play chess like the night before. Because they do apparently all play chess in a certain way and they use the same kind of moves and strategies.
Exactly.
That just having some maniac who barely knows where the pieces move flummoxed her.
Yeah. So enter chaos into it and they can't cope with it because they've got countermeasures to specific things rather than just being absolutely skillful. So it is one of these ones. I mean, I don't think I can be a grandmaster because unfortunately I know and probably recall a bit too much about chess strategy, so I'm probably a bit more too compromised versus some other chaotic person.
I barely know how to play chess. Would this be my element? I know where the pieces move, and that's about it.
Yeah. Now, the other chess goof in this episode, you had two.
Yeah, the other one is apparently, well, again, this is anecdotal at best, because we have no frame of reference for this, is that just reading someone's mind would not be enough to win a game of chess. You would have to have a full level understanding of the game and how to play it, to be able to put what you were reading from the Grandmaster's mind into motion. And we learned throughout the episode that Praise doesn't actually know how to play chess.
I don't get the impression he didn't know how to. I just got the impression he wasn't very good.
Because he wouldn't play a computer.
Yeah, I think he knows how it works. I mean, the only way I can see it working for him in terms of that is basically the Grandmaster is trying to work out what Gibson's moves are ahead of time. He's like, oh, okay, I'll take that one.
You're thinking of this in like a Futurama terms where he's thinking a coherent sentence of, the kid has just done this. The only thing I can do now is this.
Yeah, it's the Wild Green, not the Wild Green Yonder. Yeah, no, the Wild Green Yonder with the poker game.
Yeah.
Or we could do more sci-fi classicness, and it's like, it's June.
Yeah.
Paul Atreides are on the table. So he's thinking that she's thinking that I'm thinking that he's thinking that she's thinking.
Yeah.
Paul, stop it. Just do something, please. I do like it, though, that this prodigy child is not a prodigy. He's cheating in the most undetectable way in the world.
I like his commentary, though, of liking playing chess because people are just thinking and not speaking. Because he has quite a monologue at the end about how the thing that frustrates him is when people think one thing and say something different.
Yeah. So yeah, it's nice, and
it's just a purity of it I quite like.
There's some thought given into this psyche, into how he works as a psyche, and the fact that it's the other thing about the mind reading. He's only really good with someone with that kind of level of focus, or when things are that focused, but he can do it in a general sense. It's just presumably not very pleasant for him that he's been intruded on.
Yeah,
like there was the Buffy episode where this was happening, where she was just getting everyone's thoughts all at once.
Yes, it was just noise.
Yeah, except for the Scooby Gang, who went through the whole succession of Xander fancying her, Oz with a very insightful and thoughtful train of thought. We went, huh. Yeah. And that was all he vocalised. So I do like that, and I like him just acing the tests.
Oh, they were the kind of tests where you couldn't cheat in any way as well.
Yeah, it's like the cards, and then it was what they had for breakfast. In this case, of once you got to that level, this is not Sherlock Holmes couldn't pull this off. And
when it gets complicated, like the Grand Slam number 7.
Yeah, it's that specificity.
It's not just guessing. You had cornflakes.
It was the Grand Slam number 7, then it was the extra orders on top of it. Basically, unless you're there, there's no way you can get.
And we know he's been controlled because he's been with Scully and Folie, so there's been no way that anyone could have fed him this information.
Indeed. Diana Folie. Let's talk about Diana Folie.
Yes, I hate her.
Do you hate it now, or do you hate it because of what we're going to get?
Both.
Okay. We'll have to try and focus on the here and now for now.
It's the same reason why I think people detested Phoebe Green, is to get to this stage and put in a love triangle for Mulder, Scully, and Folie.
Yes, absolutely. It's just stupid. I mean, I do think that they should have brought her back.
Phoebe.
Yeah. Phoebe should have been brought back. I mean, you only have to mangle Diana's backstory a little bit for it to slot into it fairly well.
Mm.
And then we can skirt some of this stuff. But no, we're stuck with this. One thing I do feel you can point to and say Diana Folie is a massive retcon is EBE. First appearance of the Lone Gunman. When Mulder walks into that office with Dana Scully, the fact that no one says, "This is Diana's replacement, is it?"
Or even more recently in Travellers, there's no indication that Mulder had a partner or anything like that.
Yeah. Given that she's meant to be with him when he discovers the X-Files.
Yeah.
And Diana Folie is also presented to be just as kooky as him, but in a much more spiritual kind of angle.
But it's even on the basis of it. I can buy Mulder's never mentioned Folie because he doesn't really talk about himself. But the Lone Gunman have never brought him up or anything like that.
Someone would have let something slip by now.
Yeah.
Frohickey especially.
Skinner.
Anyone. Yeah. Someone would have said something about Diana Folie before her appearance. Yeah. Or even just an offhand mention of where she's back in the country. I mean, I do think that's one of the other problems with how they're writing even now, is that you need to put in her return to the US as an offhand comment, like in the middle of the season. It doesn't have to be a big thing. She doesn't have to appear. You just need to mention her, like in the Red and the Black or something.
Mm.
But no, she just shows up when we need her to. I can't say this is too harsh or not, but she feels like someone took Scully's character and dialed down the skepticism like 50%.
Yeah.
And that's Diana Folie. Or dialed down the skepticism a bit, dialed up the spiritual belief like 25%, and you've got Diana Folie.
Mm.
She's not that distinct a character.
No, at least at this stage, there's not really much to her.
No, and it possibly is unfair to the fact that she's been shot, and we know she's going to come back again in some capacity, but not for a huge amount, but she will be back.
There's also the obvious tangible jealousy between her and Scully. Both of them are guilty of it in this episode.
But the fact it's so fast.
Yeah.
Scully is really dislikes her almost from sight.
Even though Mulder barely speaks to her in the episode as well.
Yeah, and it's just the one smile across the room or something. Scully, what are you doing? Do you not remember 2 weeks ago when he was undercover? Do you not think this might be a thing? Of course it's not, but still.
It's also testimony to Mulder's personality and his character is how badly he's turned against Spender. It goes really quickly in this episode from just wanting to be part of this investigation to piss Spender off to him actually suspecting Spender of being part of the conspiracy because he sees him speaking to the Cancer Man.
Yeah. Or sees him speaking to a shadowy character. I don't think you can actually see it's Cancer Man from that distance.
Mulder jumps to the conclusion it's Cancer Man, though.
He does, absolutely. And then Cancer Man just admits to Spender part of what's going on.
I love that bit at the end where he admits to being Spender's father.
Yeah, just as firearms go off.
Yeah, I think it's a really, really nicely shot scene, though. The two of them do really well in it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, but knowing the backstory behind both of them, it's kind of weird to see. It's a case of, so there's young Cancer Man talking to old Cancer Man. It's not time travel.
Mm-hmm. In fact, I should say that entirety of the episode is so dramatic. Even though it was one of the things I saw, this episode got middling reviews at the time of release. And one of the criticisms I read, it's the two guys from I Want to Believe a Critical Guide again, who commented on the fact that this isn't new. We've already shut down the X-Files once before for a cliffhanger. Now we're just doing it again. It's just a bit more final, I guess, because we've actually set the room on fire.
Yeah.
Which it should be noticed as well is, again, just because they knew they were moving sets, and by entirely burning down the old set, it meant that they could excuse any kind of inaccuracies in the new set, apparently.
Okay. There's a logic to it. It was a shock at the end of season 1 to shut down the X-Files. It's been floating around a little bit as a threat previously, but not really made much of. And then just, it kind of feels like the blue to sort of say, oh, the X-Files is now at risk because you've tried to give immunity to this guy who assassinated a Russian chess player. Yes, Mulder, that is insane, and what you're trying to say is insane, but it just feels weird. I mean, we're going to have to get into this next time because this is integral to how the film works. And to bring it forward a little bit, the film starts with the X-Files shut down. And we know that they were filming this right at the start of the season when Usual Suspects was being filmed. So it very much feels like they'd written the film out and they knew we start with the X-Files shut down, we end however the film ends. At some point in the TV series, when we get to the last episode of the series, we have to shut down the X-Files at the end of it. And it just feels kind of weak, really, doesn't it? And also, you did not know the shape of this episode when you wrote the film. You had no idea what this was going to be.
I think the escalation in this episode just feels wrong. It feels too little to risk the X-Files for.
Yes.
Just this... We posited the alien ancestor before in the X-Files, I think, but the idea of Prazer's DNA being the key to everything, it's like, what, including that guy who can control fire over there, but it just feels too little to risk the entirety of the project for this, at this stage.
Yeah, and it's not Mulder's investigation, it's Spender's. And the implication, they don't really say it so much in the episode, but the implication is this is the key, Gibson Praise is the key integral thing that's going to sort of connect everything in the X-Files together.
Even that guy that can make fire.
Even that guy that can make fire. So also we inevitably drag in Scully stuff. And so my thought this time round was, why isn't it the kid from Revelations?
Yeah.
Because he's got a much better stab at connecting a whole lot of weird stuff together. Miracle Man inadvertently connects into the aliens because of some unintended goofs, so you can already wire the religious stuff right back into the alien stuff. The conversation between Cancer Man and Jeremiah Smith was already touching on religious aspects, and he's an alien. The kid from Revelations would have been perfect. But no, we've got Gibson Praise instead. Oh well. Interestingly, that guy who shot the shooter is referred to in fandom terms as the black-haired man.
Oh, another one.
I don't know if he shows up again. I do think this is one of those not paying attention things of when the message comes, he's given the Morley packet with the message, you're a dead man. Can you use it as a credible threat after it was the joke in Jose Chung? Like every 5 minutes was someone saying you're a dead man? And this was done as a joke because it was inherently stupid?
Bless.
But it is though, isn't it? It's case of this is like the ghost of Jose Chung coming up again.
I did like some of the casting in this episode. It's while I loathe Diana Folie, and it must be noted that 50% of the people who wrote criticisms of this episode also loathe Diana Folie. But she does a great job, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Mimi Rogers was really good in the role, as I think the kid who played Gibson Praise is fantastic as well.
He is. You completely buy just wants to be an 8-year-old, but he's got this other ability he doesn't really want.
I think there was a comment from Kim Manners where he said it's something like he exudes this sense of intelligence, and you feel it.
Yeah.
The episode.
That makes me think of there's that thing about in UK we have it with Alan Davies, exudes a level of intelligence until you watch him on QI and discover he knows nothing.
Alan Davis is Jonathan Creek.
Yeah, but you buy him as Jonathan Creek and then you watch him in any other context and he doesn't know
and he just
anything.
comes across as being a moron.
Yeah. Completely airheaded. It's startling, isn't it, that you... But again, this is one of those things about acting, is that if you can do this, fair play to you. People will make assumptions, so I wouldn't be disappointed. Do we have anything else for this episode?
No, I think the episode's a bit all over the place, a bit bitty, and it's things that might be pulled together more in the beginning when we get into season 6. But it's just, there were some nice bits. I like the kind of lone gunman pajama party, for example. It's cute, and actually, for the first time, I think drew attention to the fact that they all just live together in that room.
Yes, that is a good point. It's reminded me, we forgot to note it for Killswitch, is the name of their newspaper has changed.
It's not Magic Bullet anymore?
No, it's now the Lone Gunman.
Oh, that's funny.
Which is very odd. I don't know why they've done this, and I do know this is what will be tracked going forward, oddly, because that's definitely how it is in the Lone Gunman series.
Oh, okay.
But I don't know why that's there. The other thing, well, not really tangent, a bit, is I've brought up a few times the fact that they released X-Files episodes separately from the main series. Basically, they did initially release the first 8 episodes as 4 videotapes when it was coming out, scrapped that and just started releasing seasons as VHS box sets, which were horrendously expensive. But then to hype up the big 2-parters, 3-parters, or whatever, they released them as edited together films. So we've got The Unopened File, which is Anasazi, Blessing Ring Paperclip. You had Colony, you had Kumi and Heron Volk, so on and so on and so forth. So, Patient X. So when they said, in the run-up to the film, before the BBC had gotten season 5, an advert came out saying, the end, the X-Files episode, this episode will lead into the film.
Okay.
So went on and bought it, and, you know, bit miffed to discover it contained 45 minutes of X-Files, which was half as long as what I was anticipating. But I thought, okay, it's short, it's just an episode. I paid full price for this. Thank you, 20th Century Fox. But at least I know what to expect for the film. And put a pin in that, and we'll come back to that when we do Find the Future. Because, oh boy, 20th Century Fox, did you con me. Jerks. But if that's all we got for the episode, because it is all over the place, I don't think it's very well written.
I don't think I have much more. It might be something that we can pull together a bit better for the next one.
Yeah.
Well, not the next one, because our next episode will be the film.
It will be the film.
After that.
Again, I feel it's a problem with not knowing how you're planning a series, and the fact they got the film set up and they didn't know how to feed into it properly. Because we'll talk about it when we talk about Find the Future. So, before we do our roundup, we have reached the end of a season.
Yeah.
5 down. We've got 6 to go.
Plus 2 movies.
Plus 2 movies and the Lone Gunman series, which we're going to shove in there when we get to the relevant point. We just need to talk overall about the season, which I think was more of a disappointment than we had been anticipating.
Yeah, it had some stunning episodes in there, but on the whole, I think it's possibly been the weakest season so far.
Yeah, as much as series 1 and 2 could be very variable, this one crashes so badly at times. Like, I mean, we'll get into it in a minute, but which one's the worst ones, but it is things like misogyny, which no one likes.
Yeah.
Like, we don't like Postmodern Prometheus, but no one likes misogyny. And I know some people like Kill Switch, but I thought that was just a really frustrating mess of things. And Chinga, as much as I enjoy Chinga, I'm also prepared to admit it's a baffling episode. And I do not understand why. Because I think the AV Club had a comment about people trying to get into the X-Files in season 5, and just how bad one of the runs of episodes is there's nothing good in this chunk of the season.
I stuck with it.
I know you stuck with it. But you can see why people might come in on this season and bounce off really fast. With the case of what on earth are you trying to get me to watch?
Well, note again, I came in early in this season. I stuck with it.
You did. Well, again, people have bounced off all over the place. I mean, nothing is universally appealing. So people have watched season 1 and said, "I'm out."
Mm.
But yeah, I'd agree. Season 5 is bizarrely the weakest, and we're gonna have to look at season 6. I think to say ultimately, is this Fight the Future's fault? Yeah. Was the production of that film what made this such a colossal mess? At the same time, I don't think how they handled Redux and how they handled Patient X was very graceful.
No, true.
Because we've also noted that basically Mulder loses his faith in Redux, has 2 mentions of it, and then in Patient X, he's actively hostile to everyone. And they could have done that more gracefully.
Mm. No, I would agree.
But anyway, but we can talk about things people liked and didn't like.
Yeah. I apologise, I left this a little late, but I did frantically try to poll this on Twitter. I should have remembered to do it a week or so ago, and I do apologise. But I have been speaking to people on Twitter about their favourite and least favourite aspects of this season. And I will go, as usual, people were a lot more happy to talk about what they liked, what they disliked, which I totally understand from our fan base.
Though that is odd then that season 4 people were volunteering multiple bad episodes. Everything else we've had struggled to get people to say more than one.
It should be noted as well that 2 of the episodes that were mentioned on the worst list were actually also mentioned on the best list for this one.
A little bit confusing, but oh well. Mm. But okay, shall we do what do the listeners like best first?
What do the public like best? So, would you like to hazard a guess at what the favourite episodes were this season?
Well, Bad Blood has got to be in the mix somewhere.
It is, but it's not at the top.
Okay. I would also guess at either Patient X and Red and Black or both together.
Patient X was not mentioned at all. The Red and the Black is in the mix, yes.
Okay. I'd like to think Unusual Suspects, but I wouldn't swear to it.
Not mentioned at all.
Oh, come on, guys. Someone likes Emily, don't they?
One person did, yes.
And more than that, I'm not sure what you'd latch onto.
Okay. I'm going to go for top 3 for these. So, in joint third place, I have The Red and the Black.
Okay.
Kill Switch.
Okay.
The Postmodern Prometheus.
Okay.
Bad Blood.
Hey.
And Chinga.
I mean, I do enjoy Chinga, but I don't think it's a good episode.
In second place, there is only one. It is The End.
Fair enough.
And in joint first place, there are 2. It is Detour.
Okay.
And Redux Part 2.
Ugh.
Yeah, I knew you wouldn't agree with that one. Detour, I think we said from the start, is a massive fan favourite of the X-Files. I thought that would win, and indeed it was joint first. I wasn't expecting Redux to tie with it, though.
No, that actually has surprised me.
And I will note that specifically Redux Part 2 people have been saying, only one person mentioned Part 1.
Well, I think we were kind of Redux Part 2, because Redux Part 1 has the interminable voiceovers, so you go, for God's sake, stop it! What were your... I'm guessing you actually managed to get to 5.
Yeah, I do have a top 5, do you?
I do.
Do you want to go first, or should I?
I'd like you to go first.
Okay, so in 5th place I have Detour. 4th is Unusual Suspects. 3rd is The Red and the Black. 2nd is Bad Blood.
Cool, and your number 1?
Folie, Deux.
Fair enough. I don't think I'm going to surprise much. So number 5, I've got Unusual Suspects. Number 4, The Red and the Black. Number 3, Patient X. Number 2, Folie, Deux. And I can't really not have Bad Blood as number 1.
I was in no doubt of what you'd pick.
I just enjoy that one too much.
I just think Folie Deux is the better episode. It's an absolutely excellent Monster of the Week episode.
Okay, I would say we are in danger of just becoming the Vince Gilligan fan podcast at some point.
He just writes the best episodes.
Well, yes, since Darren Morgan left.
Mm.
Darren and Vince together again.
Can we have them joint write an episode?
It's uninteresting that has never happened, isn't it?
Mm.
I'm curious as to what they'd have done. Okay, so worst.
Okay, according to our fan base, and I will note that I've only got a small catchment of this, there were 3 episodes that were banded as the worst.
Okay. I got 5 anyway.
I have at least 5 for this. But yeah, the 3 episodes that people didn't like were Kitsunagari.
Good choice.
Travellers.
I don't know if it's a worst, but it's not good either.
Someone commented that it was like, well, the first sight of the episode was boring, I think, and then cited that it was X-Files trying to ape Dark Skies, was their feel of it.
I can absolutely see where they're coming from with that, and that would explain the spider in the throat, which you'll understand a lot more when you see Dark Skies.
Yeah, you mentioned that when we were reviewing it.
I hadn't thought of it that way, but and given Dark Skies had already failed by this point, it's not impossible. It's kind of the whole dancing on the corpse of the competitor at this point.
And the other one was Scissogyny, of course.
Inevitably. So would you like to give yours in descending order?
Yeah, I have gone for 3 and a mention that I would like to mention separately because I hate it for different reasons.
Okay.
The 3 that I actually think are bad episodes, I will say Kitsunagari and Scissogyny as well.
Yep.
And All Souls.
Okay.
The one that I loathe with a passion is the Postmodern Prometheus. And I hate it. As I went through in that episode, I just hate how it presents rape throughout the entire thing, and I loathe the episode on the whole. And I know I'm in a small minority of X-Files fans in it, but I hate it. I hate it with a passion.
The small minority of the fandom, and indeed the general public, because the perception of Postmodern Prometheus is very high.
Yeah, it's much akin to how I described Small Potatoes previously. Yeah. They're both episodes that kind of portray rape in a comedic aspect, and it's a personal thing, but I hate it when people do that. I'm not gonna diss on anybody who loves it. I know, basically, based on this thing, that a lot of you like Postmodern Prometheus, and it is a really stylish and, it has a lot going for it, but unfortunately its central premise is what makes me hate it.
Yes, it's impossible to get away from that. So mine, in descending order, I will actually go for the full 5.
Okay.
Just because I'm the mean one. But number 5 is Emily, because
Oh,
Good.
I should have mentioned Emily. Yeah, I'll add that to my list.
Good God, it's a catastrophe of an episode.
Yeah.
Number 4 was Kitsuringari because you wrecked one of your best characters. Your best monsters, yeah. Absolutely ruined one of the characters. Actually, I would say go on that one. Pusher himself, I think, actually comes out the episode pretty well. It's doing this episode again is the problem.
Yeah,
Pusher himself
agreed.
is fine. So number 3 was All Souls, which was the whole Emily is a catastrophe, and All Souls being the follow-up to Emily is just a different kind of catastrophe, which is honestly impressive. Number 2, I had postponed Prometheus for all the reasons you've said. But I put Physiogeny as number 1 because it feels even more flippant with the subject matter it's tangling with. And just, what on earth was anyone thinking?
Yeah, the Evil Tree episode is...
Yeah, how did this happen?
I will say, I don't think it's the worst. I'm still giving that to Tess or Still Speechless if we're going on just episode structure and quality.
Yes, in episode quality, you're not going to surpass that one, but Physiogeny comes on, it's the double-edged sword of, it should be okay, but the subject matter you focused on is just, needs to be done with care, and you're not showing any level of care. More fun then, and I got a bit weird with these ones. Was
the best villains.
The best villain, and I put down one thinking, yeah, that's it, then thought, wait, no, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I forgot to ask people about this one on Twitter, unfortunately. Sorry, guys, I'll do it for season 6. But go on then, what's your 3?
I actually have 4, but I wanted to hear your one first.
Oh, my ones. Okay, I'm going to go with Greg Pincus from Folie. Deux.
Okay.
Like we said earlier in this episode, he just does fantastically. I'm going to go with Reggie from Bad Blood.
Okay.
I'm going to go with that bloody Chinga doll. Just because I still have night terrors about that thing.
That's fair. Well, mine, I'm going to do it the other way around for my one, because my first thought was Robert Patrick Riddell, of course.
He's not the baddie.
I know.
That's why I didn't include him.
That's why I've got an asterisk next to him. And then I thought, oh, of course. Dr. Francis Polidori.
Okay, yeah.
Don't like the episode. He wasn't involved with any of that stuff. He just murdered someone, which seems like such a bizarre distinction to make.
Yeah, Polidori was really good, particularly the casting with the guy who plays Peterman in Seinfeld.
I very much enjoyed him as Dr. Polidori. That's great. Number 3, I went for Ronnie Strickland, because obviously...
Oh, right, sorry, I called him Reggie. It's Ronnie, isn't it?
It's Ronnie Strickland.
Yeah, it's Ronnie.
And number 4, actually, I had Greg Pincus, because I do think, in terms of actual horror aspects, he's the most actual unnerving of them.
Yeah.
But the other 3 are more, they're the villains you want to watch, whereas Pincus is, good God, get him away from me.
Yeah. No, good call. You didn't mention the doll.
I don't really rate Chinga as the villain. It's all, I can't take someone who just sings a hokey cokey all the time.
It's terrifying.
I know. So next time, we have reached the first film, an enormous milestone in the X-Files.
This is the one that's taglined, I want to believe.
No, this is Fight the Future.
This is Fight the Future, okay.
Though that name has become really weird because I remember at the time it was The X-Files Fight the Future. Now it's just The X-Files.
I remembered it just being the X-Files movie when it came out.
Yeah. I don't think it actually says Fight the Future on the opening credits or anything, so it's just The X-Files. But the second one is I Want to Believe, and that's post-season 9.
Okay.
So for now, we're going to do the X-Files film. It's been a while since either of us watched it. If you'd like to get hold of us, our email address is thingsargettingstrange42@gmail.com.
Alternatively, you can find us on social media, and do hook me up if you want us to promote any X-Files events, competitions, or whatever that you have on the go at the moment. On Twitter and Tumblr, we are GetStrange42. On Mastodon, we are at GetStrange42 at universadon.com. And on Facebook, you can find us by searching for Things Are Getting Strange, an X-Files Rewatch podcast. Additionally, if you're not sick of my voice right now, I also stream live on Twitch TV 3 times a week, where I just play whatever I've currently got on the go on the PlayStation 5. You can get me on Mondays and Wednesdays at 8 PM GMT, or Saturdays at 5 PM GMTs. At the time of recording, I'm playing Lies of P, though by the time this episode airs, I might have actually finished that and moved on to something different.
Cool. We have a Patreon, patreon.com/thingsargettingstrange, where you can find our Let's Play of the X-Files FMV game. Part 2 should be up imminently.
Hooray!
If I've got the timing of this right. I'm not used to this whole sort of pre-scheduling things.
Yeah.
But part 2 should be up, and we should have the game finished very shortly, which will be fun and hopefully not involve us dying repeatedly in the same section again.
Yeah, that was rough.
Some of them were just, how did that get us killed? But it did.
So that section with the teleporting gunmen was always fun.
Well, I like the teleporting X bit.
Yeah.
That was quite a shock. If you sign up for $3 a month, you can see the Let's Play as they come out and our review of Mulder and Scully by Catatonia. And any other ephemera we get to in the interim and afterwards. So this will be the PS2 X-Files game. We'll do the comics. We'll do the books. We should probably decide which order we want to do the books and everything in.
That's a very good point. Publication order?
Publication order. We'll do Goblins first.
Oh, no.
Unfortunately, that's publication order. That was the first book.
The worst one first, but yeah. All right, fair enough.
Well, we'll get to Goblins in the new year.
Mm-hmm.
Any Patreon pledges will be gratefully received. Also, any reviews, if you want to review us on wherever you found this podcast. I'm assuming you're not downloading it directly off the website. So, Apple, iTunes,
Amazon.
Podbean, Amazon, Google, wherever you do, give us a rating and a review if you feel up to it. It'd be very nice. Tell your friends if they're into the X-Files. This is not a good introduction to the series, so don't give it to someone who doesn't know what the X-Files is. Our theme music is Vision by Kevin MacLeod. You can find that on incompetech.com, licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0. Thank you all for listening, and until next time, please remember,
it's hiding in the light.